The final theme that we are looking at is appearance versus reality. Most of the central characters in the play hide behind a mask to conceal their true intentions while trying to figure out what the other characters are thinking. We will focus on three of the main characters: Claudius, Hamlet, and Polonius. Claudius addresses and comments on the dead king. Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. But now my cousin Hamlet and my son. It's a very, very important speech which indicates a lot around Claudius's real character. He comments on his relationship and his apparent grief over his brother, the king's death. This is insincere, as he was directly responsible for his death. He is a murderer and a usurper of the crown, and also guilty of incest. Claudius continues on Hamlet and comments about his relationship with Hamlet. Think of us as a father, our chiefest courtier, cousin, and our son. He pretends to be loving, but wants him out of the way and ultimately killed. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark is an example of foreshadowing by the characters early in the play, Act 1, Scene 4. Who or what is rotten? Claudius. Marcellus speaks the famous line, which is prophetic of the evil lurking in the person of the new King Claudius after witnessing the ghost of Hamlet's father. In early Act 1, Scene 5, Hamlet comments on Claudius, "O villain, villain, smiling, damned villain." Hamlet is enraged when he learns a hideous and painful truth from the ghost of his recently deceased father. The late king did not die a natural death, but was murdered by his own brother, the new King Claudius. My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. The king kneels and contemplates praying, not so much for forgiveness for his rank offense in killing his brother, but rather that he will get away with it. Hamlet enters unseen by the king and considers killing the king at prayer. He does not, however, fear that the king will then go to heaven. The king rises from prayer, never having seen Hamlet, and utters the words above, revealing his own knowledge that his prayer is invalid and consists of words but no true feelings of remorse. Ironically, as he wants to retain the rewards of his crimes, namely the queen and the crown.
Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, and that it us be fitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. Therefore, our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress of this warlike state, have we, as 'twere with a defeated joy, with one auspicious and one dropping eye, with mirth in funeral and with dirge in marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife.
The play is the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. A good example of dramatic irony, where we, the audience, are aware of what Hamlet and Horatio are planning to prove the guilt of the king through a reenactment of his father's death, and it works out accordingly because of the king's reaction. England, for like the hectic in my blood he rages, and thou must cure me till I know 'tis done. Claudius is relying on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to ensure that Hamlet is in England and to be rid of him. Only then will he be able to be at peace, as he is a threat and very popular amongst his people. The king's to blame. Finally, good triumphs over evil, and Claudius gets his comeuppance. As it were, when Laertes confirms Claudius's role in Gertrude's death, the poisoned chalice, and the poisoned foil to kill Hamlet in the duel, order is ultimately restored. The next character we look at, which depicts the theme of appearance and reality, is Hamlet. Seems, madam? Nay, it is. I know not seems. Hamlet here is arguing with Gertrude about the fact that people die and should be in mourning. In her case, it seems that mourning is over, as she has remarried very quickly. As I perchance hereafter shall think meet to put an antic disposition on. This is a key moment again, as he decides at this point to feign madness so that his revenge scheme can work. He would not be able to act normally in his end. A villain, smiling, damned villain. Hamlet is enraged when he learns a hideous and painful truth from the ghost of his recently deceased father, that he did not die a natural death, but was murdered by his own brother. He cannot let Claudius know that he knows. This is a very good example of dramatic irony. Polonius, reporting on Hamlet to Claudius, says he fell into a sadness, then into a fast, thence to a watch, thence into weakness, into the madness wherein he now raves. The play is the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. Planning Claudius' downfall is not a sign of a mad person. He is thinking very logically. The famous soliloquy, to be or not to be, that is the question. These words reflect the state of desperation in which Hamlet finds himself as he contemplates suicide. His father has died. His mother has remarried within a month of the king's passing. And to make it worse, she has married the king's brother, who is now the king of Denmark. As Hamlet's despair deepens, he learns, through the appearance of an apparition of his dead father, that the old king was murdered by Claudius. Hamlet's growing awareness of the betrayal of his mother and evil of Claudius leads to a deepening depression and madness. This soliloquy contains the famous words, "Thus conscience does make cowards of us all," hinting that the dread of something after death, purgatory, hell, perhaps, is what keeps Hamlet alive to avenge his father. Get thee to a nunnery, why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? As Hamlet sinks into despair over the murder of his father and the betrayal of his mother, his anger towards all women increases. He subjects Ophelia to rage and apparent madness, and Ophelia is badly affected by this speech and contributes to her eventual suicide. A rat, dead for a ducat, dead. Hamlet slays Polonius, whom he mistakes for the king hiding behind the arras in Gertrude's room. In the aftermath of this mistaken murder, Hamlet seems strangely untouched by his own deed, which argues whether he may well be. That I essentially am not in madness, but mad in craft. Hamlet informs his mother to tell the king that he knows exactly what he is doing, and he's only pretending to be mad as part of his plan. Oh, from this time forth my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. Hamlet now becomes a man of action, similar to Fortinbras and Laertes. No more talking, revenge into action. He admires Fortinbras. Finally, in Act 5, Scene 1, I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not wish all their quantity of love make up my sum. He confirms what we all suspected, that he does love Ophelia very much, and that no one could ever love her as much as he does. It was all part of a pretense that he came across by not loving her for the benefit of others, namely Polonius Gertrude, Claudius, and others. The cat will mew and the dog will have his day. Things will follow their due course. The foreshadowing that Hamlet will triumph, which he ultimately does, and regains his honor. And the final person who illustrates this theme of appearance versus reality is Polonius. And it starts off early in the play when he's addressing his son. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. Farewell, my blessing season this in thee. Polonius offering a guidance and advice to his son Laertes before he departs. It is interesting that he cannot follow his own advice and is indeed a hypocrite with no integrity at all. He then addresses his daughter with advice. Do not believe his vows, for they are brokers not that of that dye which their investments show, but mere implorators of unholy suits. Ophelia's mind is poisoned against Hamlet by both her father and her brother. Here he is saying that Hamlet is insincere and she mustn't believe him. We find out that this is ultimately not true, as he loved her deeply. Polonius is talking to Rinaldo to check on his son in Paris. You shall do marvelously wisely, good Rinaldo, before you visit him to make inquire of his behavior. So he sends Rinaldo to spy on his son Laertes to see what he's up to in Paris. There is a lack of trust, another example of a man without any integrity. Polonius to Claudius. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. This is ironical. Polonius is never brief, and his comments and answers are always very long-winded. This is a very well-known proverb. Brevity is the soul of wit. The essence of a witty statement lies in its concise wording and delivery. He is anything but this. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. Polonius whispers this in an aside, referring to Prince Hamlet. Feigning insanity allows Hamlet to say and do things not otherwise acceptable. Everyone looks for reasons for his madness. The queen believes it is related to his father's death and her hasty remarriage. Polonius believes it is because he ordered his own daughter to break off her romance with Hamlet. Yet he notices that there is some order and rationality at the heart of Hamlet's madness, a method which will lead to revenge. This line has been commonly rephrased as, there's method to his madness. Ophelia, walk you here. Gracious, so please you, we will bestow ourselves. Hypocritically, Polonius abuses his daughter's goodwill, using her as a pawn with regards to her relationship with Hamlet and to spy on him. It ends tragically for both of them. My lord is going to his mother's closet. Behind the arras I will convey myself. Still doing the king's bidding, which results in Polonius' death while spying on Hamlet and Ophelia. Oh, I am slain. Hamlet stabs Polonius when he thinks it is Claudius hiding behind the arras. It is ironical here in that Hamlet did not spare a thought about his actions here, where he did when he thought Claudius was praying.